Hi there, Cancer. I'm EllaAradia, and welcome to your June 2026 Psychic Tarot reading. This reading is for my Cancer water signs, where we'll be exploring the overall energies and themes for the month ahead, as well as taking a deeper dive into how these might be playing out for you in your life. This is a general reading, so it's not going to resonate for all of you. But what I do find is there's always a shared theme that runs through the collective of all of you Cancer signs. So take what feels aligned to you and just leave the rest. And before we jump in, a big thank you to all of you who are supporting my channel by liking and subscribing. So if you enjoy this reading and you haven't already done that, please do. It helps the channel out a lot. It doesn't cost anything to subscribe, and then you can get notified when the next videos are up. So Cancer, let's jump in. I always like to tune into the energies first, Cancer, before I start pulling any cards. I'm a psychic reader, so I always like to see what the universe shows me. I'm seeing a moment of some kind of pause for many of you, a moment of a reset, a moment of reassessing perhaps your present circumstances. I feel a lot of questions coming up for many of you around, life choices, decisions, decisions which may have led you on a different path or may have brought you to, where you are right now. And a lot of questions like going back over the past, around these different life choices that you've made. And I feel, some kind of reassessing, are you truly happy, with your life the way it is now in your present position? What I'm feeling is, some kind of void or space that has been created, which has allowed, I feel, for, some kind of deep reflection on what truly makes you happy and what do you truly want in life. And to me, it feels like there's been some loss. That could be, a job that ended. To me, it feels more like a relationship, or it may even be the actual loss of a loved one. With your overall energies, we have the Magician. This is a card of potential, of possibility. It's a very potent, energy of creation. Usually something that is, right at the early stages, because I do feel like there is some invitation this month around, looking at, what do you want? What truly makes you happy? Because I feel like there's been a lot of energy investing in other people, and what they're doing in their lives, and being this great support or partner or friend. But in the process, I feel almost kind of putting yourself a little bit on the back burner, putting yourself onto one side. And I just feel like there has been some kind of, space created here where all that you're left with is actually yourself right now. And, this can be in many ways, a very positive thing. I do feel like, there is some kind of process around whatever has, been lost. There's some kind of process of dealing with emotions. For some of you, heartbreak. But I feel it is to almost, just keep in the back of your mind here that even though this may have been, incredibly difficult or challenging, just keep that little voice in there that it's also important to focus on what remains, which is you. And there is a blessing, that will come out of this situation. And I almost get the sense, that You know, if it's a relationship that kind of broke down, or, you know, somebody left your life, I kind of feel like it's the universe coming in and wanting to, you know, shift you on a different path, wanting you to really step into more of who you truly are here. And that's why we have the Magician here, this card of potential, because there are some lessons this month, I feel, around, you know, really owning your power, really owning who you are. I feel like you've been doing a lot of kind of caretaking for others, and you're great support for friends, partners. But in the process, you may have, I feel, stopped investing a little bit in yourself and your own life. What lies in your recent past is the Page of Swords. Your current energies, the Nine of Cups. And that's single energy. That's why I feel like this may be a relationship. You know, for some of you, even a friendship, you know, someone that you do love and care about, but something that has, I feel, come to a close. And to me, when I feel into the energies of this, it does feel very one-sided, in the sense of, you know, I feel like it's been you kind of carrying that connection for quite some time. Investing a lot, supporting others in, you know, their lives, their interests. But in the process, you know, putting your own to one side. Your feelings towards your situation, the Eight of Pentacles, that's the energy of putting the work into something which, you know, in the long term, you want to get something back from. I'm getting the sense with this card, you know, there may be a situation, you know, whatever it is that's come to a close, whatever it is that you feel that you've lost, I feel like there's still a little bit of difficulty in understanding, perhaps, you know, why things kind of went down the way that they did. You know, the Page of Swords often comes up when, you know, very often there's some kind of decision to make, but we're not quite ready to make it. You know, we're still gathering information. We're still getting all the facts of something. But with your current energies, you know, like I said, this is single energy. And this is a card which represents emotional fulfillment and contentment. And it's very often, you know, when the energies of that card are in balance, it's very often these energies of, you know, I'm okay as I am. I don't necessarily need a partner. I don't necessarily need a relationship. Doesn't mean it isn't something you would like, but you're also happy on your own. You know, if it means having a partner is something that's going to be, you know, unfulfilling or one-sided or unhealthy or toxic in some way, you know, this is the energy of you kind of being okay on your own and not needing somebody else, not settling for less just to have a partner here. This is you kind of really hitting that sweet spot of actually being comfortable and content in your own company. And that's a great space to get to, because, you know, we have to, you know, really pour into ourselves and really love ourselves, know our worth and our value, in order to really attract somebody who can do that for us. Because I do feel a very one-sided energy in, you know, whatever has kind of come to a close here. And for some of you, I feel like this has created space where it's giving you the opportunity to really look at your life and what you want to create. So for some of you, that can be learning a new skill, because the Eight of Pentacles is a card of mastery. And, you know, sometimes that's you putting the work into yourself. You know, you are the thing that you're working on in terms of self-development. becoming a better person, learning from the past, growing. And for some of you, that's about, a mastery of a new skill. So whatever has come to a close, I do feel that's happened for a reason for you. And it's meant to, first of all, put you on a different path, but also it's about you stepping in to your potential. This is a card of power, creation, and you really owning, who you truly are, owning your power. That's the invitation that, you're being asked to step up to this month, I feel. And so whatever has happened, it's created that space for you to really have a look at your present position and a moment of a pause where you're looking here at what is it time to let go of? What do you want to take with you moving forwards? But doing that from the energy of what you truly want, as opposed to perhaps, adapting, your dreams in life, your life goals, what you really want to, explore and have for your life, for supporting somebody else. And so this space has been created where you are kind of just left with yourself. And, yes, there might be some difficult emotions and things to process here from the past, but I do strongly feel that there is a very powerful kind of hidden blessing in all of this, because it's allowed you to really come back to yourself and have a look at your life and what do you want moving forwards here. In the challenge, we have the Six of Pentacles, which is exactly what I was just talking about. This is the energy of, the balance of give and take in relationships. And in the challenge, that's telling me there has been something where those energies have been out of balance. One person has been giving more than the other, or what you have been putting in, you haven't been receiving back. I almost get the sense of you being in a connection which, it did give you something. There was some kind of sense of security with it. But I also get the sense of you not really feeling seen and recognized for who you truly are. And very often we tend to love others in the way we actually want to be loved, rather than matching the energy. Because when I feel into the person that you've been dealing with, it's like they're there, but they're not really stepping up. I feel like this is someone that has just kind of settled in, got into a routine. Things have kind of got a little bit mundane, and it's just kind of become this routine of it being a little bit one-sided, where it's more about them, what they're doing, their career, what they need. And in the process, I feel losing yourself. And of course, there's always something to look at with that. What is it? What's the payoff around, being all of these things to other people, except for yourself? What is the payoff to doing that? Like, if I give and I support the other person in whatever they're doing, what is it subconsciously that you're hoping to receive? Because to me, I see the word acknowledgement, loved, acknowledged, valued. It's almost like the more effort you put in, the more chance there'll be of being kind of truly appreciated and valued, because that's what I feel is missing. And so I feel you've been dealing with someone who has been a little bit kind of sat back, and does bring something, brings a sense of, family, partner. But deep down inside, there's this energy in you where there is, an unfulfillment, not feeling seen, appreciated, and acknowledged, for what you bring, who you are. And that's the interesting part of it, because until you do that for yourself, until you really stand in your own power and who you truly are, and not be afraid to express that, then, you will attract, I feel, people that don't recognize that in you, because there is a soul lesson here where you need to recognize that in yourself. And so there is this pattern of over-giving, over-investing, where we have, this imbalance in these energies with the Six of Pentacles. Now, for some of you in a relationship, this can sometimes represent a third-party energy. Like the figure on the card is giving to two different people. That's not going to resonate for all of you, but for some of you, that might be something that you've been dealing with. And it may just be an intuition at this point, which is why we have this Page of Swords here, because sometimes this card is also known as the spy of the tarot, and it often represents someone, still gathering information, still getting all the facts. It can be someone who is, that could be you, looking at social media, trying to find out information, like you have some kind of intuition here. And, that may have brought you to this point where you're just feeling very closed off and guarded, because that's the kind of the flip side to this card as well. The arms are folded, the legs are a little bit apart, and it represents, this balance between being open and closed. And in a love reading, this is someone who is very much in a single energy. This is quite a closed off energy in a sense. And so for some of you, it is resonating that way as well, that there could be some kind of suspicion here of a third party energy. And if that's the case, I just also feel like you're dealing with someone again who just doesn't seem able to really step up and deal with whatever issues might be going on in your connection. I feel like you're dealing with someone who struggles to kind of express their feelings, to have perhaps uncomfortable conversations and things like that. And instead of kind of dealing with that, they've stayed kind of sat back, and whatever they feel has been missing from the connection, they've found it elsewhere on the outside, which is this third-party energy sometimes. In the hidden influence, we have the Ace of Swords. You're being asked to really see the truth here. This is an energy which comes in to cut through illusions, to bring the truth of a situation. Often represents, these kind of light bulb moments where, you are being asked to really see things as they really are. And, this is also about new ideas, seeing things differently, inspirations, so we have the Magician. That's usually the spark of a new idea, manifesting. And that's going to relate for the other group of you that I was talking about, where you are looking at what do you really want for your life. And just be aware, this is inspirations coming in, new ideas, these kind of moments where we have these kind of epiphanies about things. So, pay attention, because I feel like the universe is, bringing in those new ideas for you moving forwards, because that's some kind of new beginning. It's the Ace of Swords, some kind of new way of looking at things, some kind of fresh start here. And, for many of you, that I feel involves perhaps, a new career and a new skill that you're learning, or even just, putting that work into yourself, self-development, and, really seeing things clearly for what they really are in terms of, what certain situations or dynamics with people are really teaching us. Because there's a big lesson here, I feel, about bringing that focus back to you and your needs. And very often these are things that we put to one side, especially in childhood. If we're not receiving love in the way that we need it shown to us, if we're not really feeling seen and recognized for who we truly are, there are a lot of different things that can happen. And one of those things that can come out of that is this overgiving. And, if I give and give and give and I invest enough, then maybe I will be loved and I will be valued and appreciated. And that's definitely something I'm feeling here for some of you. And quite often in that process, we put our needs to one side because there's an energy here in wanting to be chosen. And the invitation here, Cancer, is all about choosing yourself, looking after your needs. It's all about bringing that focus back to self. And that is why I feel, you're in this moment where there is this space, there is this sense of a void where you're being asked to, come back to yourself, come back to your power, and really look at what you want moving forward and not settling for anything less here. So in your advice, we have the Knight of Swords. This often represents a very fast-moving energy. It can sometimes be somebody coming into your life very quickly, leaving your life very quickly, but often in quite a destructive way. It's also a caution about, not charging ahead. Make sure you take the time, I feel, to really listen to your heart here, get all the facts of a situation. Some of you may have had, some kind of new offer or opportunity coming in. And, make sure everything is as it seems. Make sure you tune into your heart as in, what feels right for you moving forward. So take your time, don't go rushing forwards just yet. There's no need to kind of rush. And in your outcome, we have the Five of Swords. And this is often a card of conflict. It represents very often arguments that are usually these ego-driven types of arguments where you have somebody who is just wanting to be right. They're digging their heels in. But in this reading, I feel this is all about cutting ties with people, particularly people, places, situations, but mainly people who you do have these one-sided connections with, anybody that, this doesn't feel healthy. If it feels toxic or imbalanced, or you feel drained all the time, these one-sided connections. And there might be a little bit of a challenge in doing that, but this is what the universe, I feel, is asking you to do. It's about questioning, these connections that you have, whoever this relates to, and really being honest and really seeing the truth of, how things are, and putting that work into yourself, doing what's right for you, finding the courage to, really face any fears and insecurities, and cutting ties with anybody that it feels unhealthy with, because the invitation here is about choosing you and your needs and knowing that, those needs are valid moving forwards, because something needs to change in you if you are going to, really attract in the opportunities that you want for your life, the kind of partner that you want for your life. So Cancer, I'm going to leave that there. If this reading resonated, let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. And as always, no matter what comes through in a reading, moving forwards, always trust what feels right for you. So thanks so much for being here, Cancer, and I wish you a great month ahead.